So now we're going to go ahead and do the rest of the silverware. Let's unisolate the chair. Go ahead and hide this guy. Get out of X-ray mode. And now we have our knife and our fork. So we're going to go ahead and isolate those two. Here we're going to select it and go create automatic. Focus in on the knife by pressing F. Now for the knife, what we're going to do is we're going to create a separation between the handle and the knife part itself. So let's go ahead and shift click, then shift double click on the edge to select the loop. Go ahead and cut there. And now what I want to do is stitch the handle at the parts that are connected at the most outer points. So it'll be this ring right here. Okay. So we're going to deselect one of the edges. We already have 3 of the edges selected. I'm going to go ahead and hit stitch together. Now this might look wonky, but if you look at the UV shell, we have a nice grid. Right? So we want to make sure that we have a nice checkerboard on the object. Let's go ahead and select this bottom piece right here and hit stitch together, which is that. And now we can go ahead and start sewing the rest of do the same thing with the edge of the knife. So we want to select this edge and this edge right here. Go ahead and hit stitch together. We also have this top point right here, so we want to select this guy, hit stitch together, right? And now we want to select the most outer edge, which is this guy right here, and hit stitch together. So now we have our knife and our knife handle. And let's just hit layout. Alright. So with the fork, we're kind of going to do the same thing. We're going to select our fork. We're going to select the part where the handle meets the metal. Now we can either do this at this point or we can do this back here. I'm choosing to do it at this point. Go ahead and hit, first we need to go, got ahead of myself, create automatic. Now I can more easily select these edges here and here. Go ahead and cut that. Now for the fork, some of the edges are a little more tricky because they do have a bend to them, but what we're going to do is go ahead and select the edge here. Well, first let's cut this edge. So let's go ahead and cut that edge, and then this edge right here. Select the edge here, select the edge here, go ahead and hit stitch together. And if we try to unfold this, no real big changes. The only problem is when we try to stitch this other one together. Come here, unfold, unfold, and we're gonna get this wackiness. So for the sake of that, we'll just leave this is one piece and this is one piece. Now we can go ahead and start stitching some of our handle parts together. stitch that together, stitch that together. Okay, so here's the fun part. We can stitch these parts together, right? Now, with most hard surface objects, you can kind of get away with more pieces being disconnected only because you can either add some damage or you can have more leeway on the transitions of the edges. With the more organic or more smooth objects, it's a little bit harder to get away with. But with the way texturing softwares work nowadays, it's a lot easier to be able to hide the seams. I'm going to stitch those two together, and then we have just this guy, which is back here. So let's go ahead and stitch that together. Now we're going to select our UV shells and UV layout. Okay, now remember before we said that we want to have these objects as a set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the objects. I'm going to go ahead and get my textile density, hit set. It's going to realign everything. I'm going to go into my UV shell, select all these guys, and hit layout. Now let's take a look and see what the textile density on these guys look like. So it looks good. I mean, there's even textile density, but I'm seeing that there's a discrepancy in the amount of space that's left, the amount of texture space that's left. So I can either not do that and keep these separate, still leaves me a lot of texture space on the plate. And then just combine these two, which will fill the space completely up. So I actually think having the fork and knife in the same UV plane is actually a better option, seeing as we can texture both of them the same and they'll be on the same texture set. So I'd rather do that and then leave the plate as its own separate entity. So let's hit UV layout, UV shell. Let's kind of move these around, see if we can fill up more of this space. Just so that we can get as much of texture in here as possible. Alright, and so that is how, let's go back into Maya Classic mode. The objects that are hidden, you can either select them and hit H, or you can go Shift H, which is not working. So let's go ahead and hit H again, and now we have all of our objects ready to go and UV laid out.